everyone. Welcome to the Jujiteiras Podcast. My name is Stacy. I am a Jujiteira, and this is my podcast. Welcome to Season 2 of the Jujiteiras Podcast. I am so excited to be here. I am so excited to be here, everyone, and I'm so grateful to have you along with me as well. Now, Season 2 is a series of interviews that I've done with the ladies that I train with, and also some ladies that I have yet to meet in person, for them to share their story. Hence the theme of Season 2, which is Share Your Story. So, to kick off Season 2, we have my interview with my friend and training partner, Diana Kubilius. And as you're going to hear, Diana is still very young. She was 18 at the time of the interview, but she's extremely insightful, and her experience, I think, will be able to speak to a lot of people. So I really hope you enjoy this interview with Diana. Hi, everyone. I am sitting here with my friend and training partner, Diana. Diana, say hi.
Hello, everybody.
And this is the first episode of Season 2, Share Your Story. So, Diana, would you like to share your story?
I would love to.
I would love for you to. So before we get into your story, would you mind introducing yourself for the listeners, please?
Of course. As Stacy said, I'm Diana. I'm 18 years old, and I'm currently in college, although I started Jiu Jitsu my senior year. And I started at Gracie Barra Downers Grove. I'm a white belt with 1 stripe right now. Yeah. And I started at Gracie Barra, and I was there for, I think I started February. I was there until about August, and then left to school. And my school actually had a jiu-jitsu club, so I tried to go to that, but I was really busy adjusting to college life, and it was much different than it was at
It is an adjustment. How cool is it, though, that your college had that jiu-jitsu club?
It was really cool.
Yeah, so you
but
didn't
it was
have
run
to...
by all white belts.
Oh.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was really cool. I loved the initiative. It was just a lot of wrestlers. I'm just a student at Gracie Barra.
Well, I'm glad you're a student there. It's been so much fun having you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your belt ranks. You're a white belt with 1 stripe. Now, I know the previous interviews I've done have been with people who have more experience, more training experience. So can you kind of talk about your journey to even starting? You know, because you're still pretty early in the process, but I want to hear from your perspective, like, how did you even get started? How did you decide, like, why, jiu-jitsu and all this kind of stuff? Like, can you talk about that,
Of course.
please?
Yeah, so I think 2022, my New Year's resolution, so I actually had COVID over 2022, the New Year's, so I couldn't go out, which was a blessing in disguise because that had me journaling about the past year, and I stumbled across this self-growth, self-help program. It was called the Iron Mind 30, and you journaled every day, and one of the things, the big outtake from the program was getting out of your comfort zone. And I realized, I was like, wow, 2022, I mean, it was an awesome year, but I didn't do anything that took me out of my comfort zone, and I think inevitably you grow, but there could have been a lot more growth. And so I was kind of waiting for something that would take me out of my comfort zone, and I was listening to Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink, and they had talked about the mindset that jiu-jitsu had given them. And they said, they compared it to, Jocko, I think, was saying how he could read his hate comments on Twitter. And Joe Rogan's like, well, not everyone can read their hate comments. That's just because you face a life or death situation every day. And granted, I don't get hate comments, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool mindset. And if jiu-jitsu had given them that, I was like, okay, not only would I love to get that, but I loved that it would also take me out of my comfort zone. So it was 2 for 1.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I was like, I have no idea what that is. And so right away, I start researching schools. And Gracie Barra actually wasn't the first school. I called another school, and they never got back to me. So it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
And I'm a little superstitious, and I saw Gracie Baja had 123 reviews, and I saw 1, 2, 3. I was like, you know what? I'll call them next, and I did, and they got back to me right away, as they do.
Yeah.
And right before the first class where I went to sit in, I literally sat down on the couch, and I had to look up what Jiu-Jitsu was. Had no idea what it was, and I looked it up. I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go see what this is like. And ever since, it definitely takes me out of my comfort zone. And the first few months of driving there, and still sometimes like getting back into it, I feel the nerves in my chest the whole way there, and I just have to remind myself, this is why I got into it, and I know it's making me more confident every time I go past that.
just like the hardest part of it is walking through the door.
Yeah.
That is the biggest act of bravery. Yeah. It's just coming in.
Yes.
And walking over the threshold and starting.
Agreed.
And I'm so glad that you did that.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's people like you guys at the gym that make it easier. I mean, the community is so welcoming. And I think that'd be anywhere. Anyone that does jiu-jitsu is...
And that's something that I love about it, too.
Yeah.
And can you describe, please, because you are a white belt with 1 stripe.
Yes.
Stripe!
Woo!
And so can you describe what your experience has been like being a female white belt at our gym, but also just in jiu-jitsu? What has that experience? I mean, I haven't totally forgotten what it was like to be a white belt, but I feel like I can look back with hindsight and just kind of have a different perspective on it than somebody who is in it right now.
Yeah.
Can you please just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for me personally, at least, it's very uncomfortable, especially I'm not someone that grasps martial arts easily at all, and I think everyone feels that way, or so I've heard, but it's definitely difficult, especially, sparring and getting into that and feeling like, I know that everyone's so helpful, and it's still, I go through those times where every time I'm, going against a higher belt, I just feel like I'm wasting their time, and I have to remind myself that.
No, Diana! Although I will say, I used to feel that way too.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, no, you're not.
Yeah.
It is our privilege and honor to be able to help nurture those who are coming after us.
Yeah.
Just like the ones who came before us did with us.
Yeah.
That's the nature of it.
Which is, I love that about jiu-jitsu. And the first day being there where they match you up with a higher belt, and still to this day, I think it's amazing. It's amazing. I've never been in a community like that. So I think it's a lot of almost insecurity being a white belt, but with it comes so much growth, and I've already experienced that. So.
Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Do you have examples in mind? Can you talk about the growth that you've had?
I think that's, multi-dimensional, really. I remember getting my uniform, and the pro shop manager was like, this will be for your body, mind, and soul. And I heard that, and I was like, wow.
Yes!
It's so true. So, and especially when I did do my first competition, that's really where the body aspect came in, where I was eating right and drinking enough water, and not just to cut weight, but just because I wanted my body to flourish.
Yeah.
And that in turn, and also every day, you go with your mind and you're learning something every single day, which not every sport you could say that. You're, nitpicking, but for this, you're really... Yeah. And I relearn things constantly.
Yeah. And that's something that I love about also our particular school. Gracie Baja in general, there's a curriculum, and you have a set technique you're going to be learning, and you have a set of skills you're going to be learning, but it's also cyclical. It comes back around. Yeah. It always comes back around, but then it also comes back around in terms of teaching it and reteaching it, and then the more you come, you're going to end up getting the whole curriculum over and over and over again, and there's going to be some detail, be like, oh yeah, no, I remember that, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Have you experienced anything similar to that so far?
With seeing different things?
Yeah, or seeing the same techniques, or being retaught the same techniques that you were already taught, and seeing it in a slightly different light?
Yeah, I don't know if I've been there where I understood a technique enough to notice something different with it, but I have noticed with different professors and different ways of teaching it, the different ways that you can apply it, which is which has been helpful, but I don't know if I've been there where I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't notice that last time.
No, that's okay. And I'm just asking, and each person's experience, each person's story is different.
Yeah.
Which is, why we're having you hear this conversation.
Yeah.
Just like, what has your experience been like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think another way I've grown is definitely my confidence level in so many different ways. Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is, like, self-defense. So, yeah, walking around, I feel a little more confident. But I think even just my posture and the way that I feel in groups of people and the different types of people that I've met. I've never been in an area with so many different types of people. And I've been able to hear all of their stories on the mats. I love meeting someone new and hearing what they do and how they got into jiu-jitsu, which is so much of the podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's half the reason I go is just to interact with people, and they're all such cool people.
Yeah, can you talk about, because listening to you say that right now just reminded me of something you were saying about earlier, is the community.
Yes.
Can you talk about how, or your experience at least, coming into the school and finding the community, being part of it, just anything like that?
Yeah. I think as a female, specifically at our school, the women have a very tight-knit community, which I know you talked about with Denise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so special, especially a lot of the women. I don't know if I would have necessarily been friends with them instantly like somewhere else, like in school, but all of us really, I think, get along just under the common core of jiu-jitsu. Which, honestly, I don't know if I understand fully, but we just do. And all the girls are so sweet, which definitely helps. And I remember going away to school and looking at videos of classes and all the women being together. And there was something about the energy that's at Gracie Baja that is irreplaceable and that is so unique where even if you search for it anywhere else, I mean, I know that I couldn't find it. And I remember looking and being emotional looking back at that and missing it so much, which showed me how much it meant to me.
Yeah.
And it had never hit me like that before.
Yeah. And I think that you brought up an interesting point where you mentioned, I don't know if I would have been friends with these people without jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting because I actually have reflected on that before as well, where I'm just like, I have, because we all have this amazing thing in common. And also with it being jiu-jitsu, we're like up in each other's business.
That's true. That helps.
So it's like you form a bond with people when you're cheek to cheek with them, when you're like sweating in each other's eyes and stuff. Like it's
like the awkward barrier is already passed.
Oh my God.
You can't go back.
When you've like accidentally elbowed somebody in the crotch.
Yeah.
And it's all an accident, guys. Like, we're not out here trying to, like, deliberately hurt each other. Nobody's doing that. But it's just, like you were saying, I don't know if I would have ever come across these awesome people just in day-to-day life if we didn't have this.
And I never had that with any other sports. Like, I think for example, I did volleyball for a number of years.
Oh, you did?
I did. And there was a team bond for sure, but there was always some sort of, like, drama or uneasiness. But in jiu-jitsu, there's none, like, for some reason, everyone has a bond, and I think it must be then the crossing that physical barrier. I don't know what else, or the sport itself is just so special where it can bring people together like that.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both, plus also, like, the mental shifts, like, and also just the emotional shifts, too. I don't know if you've experienced those yet, because I know you're still pretty early in your journey, but it's a very humbling experience, the sport of jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. People who have egos, and I said people because it's not all men, you know what I mean? Like, women. If you're around women long enough, you'll know that there's really egotistical women. Like, we all have the ego. But people who have egos, you have to leave it at the door, because when you are the more you try to control a situation in jiu-jitsu, or like force control on a situation, the more you're going to lose control of that situation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's you have to let go of your ego, which is really hard. But yeah, you know, and you get put with different people from different walks of life and ages and talents and you know, you start making friends with people you probably literally never would have met.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought that up, you know, because I honestly, I don't think I knew what your age was until you said how old you were. But you're so cool though. But it's like, when would we ever have had a chance to cross paths?
I know.
Like if I weren't doing jiu-jitsu and then you weren't doing jiu-jitsu, because if you're a college student, you're too busy and then I'm working full-time. Like, how would we have crossed paths?
We wouldn't have.
I'm so glad we did.
And I think we both, like, every relationship can add so much. I think the more different you are, the more special that relationship is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, oh my God.
I think I love jiu-jitsu. I don't know many other sports that can do that. Or environments that nourish that.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I have to agree with that because, I mean, maybe I'm not the best person to talk about this because I was never very sporty. Okay. I never really did, like, team sports weren't really my thing. You know, I was never sporty in the first place. So I never really got to experience that kind of camaraderie in that way, but also when you're going through school, you're always put with people your own age who are in similar life situation, like kind of like similar life stage as you are. And so meeting people outside of that is really hard. Yeah. You know, and basically, I mean, obviously, because you're in your first year or second year of college? First. So, and again, like being at college, I mean, there's more of a diverse population there, but you're all still kind of sort of in the similar age ranges, in similar life stages.
Yeah. Very much so.
So how do you get exposed to different people of different ages and backgrounds unless you do something like this? Like, but I mean, before you get into the workforce, because then, but by the time you're in the workforce, like, how do you interact with these people?
Yeah, and it teaches you people skills, especially when I'm just 18. Yeah. And so much of figuring out what I wanted to do, and I'm still doing that, is asking people every day, oh, what do you do for a living? And hearing what they like and dislike about that has been so beneficial.
I love that. Oh my gosh. And again, like if you weren't able to meet people of different ages and walks of life and stuff, how would you be able to get that kind of information?
Yeah.
I don't know where you go to get it.
I don't know either. Yeah. And it's authentic responses too, because they're not going there to talk about their jobs. It just happens to be, you know, it's not like a job shadow or an exposition of different careers. Because those are never real. You talk about, oh, how was your day at work today? You know, you get the truth.
Yeah. That is such a great point. Oh my God. It's like the same thing. I was just thinking of this because we just were talking that you are in college. It's like going on a college visit.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, oh my God, it's like you said, it's not authentic. If you're like, you're at a career fair or whatever, people obviously, they're trying to recruit you.
Yeah.
To like come to their company, but it's like you don't know the reality of it because they're trying to get you to come there.
Yeah.
You know, like if you go on these college tours, they're only telling you all the good things about it. You're not getting the full picture.
Yeah. People are so real on the mats because they have no reason to lie.
Yeah,
they have no reason to
oh my gosh,
flaunt your life because, like you said, you leave your ego at the door. And I think that crosses past just your jiu-jitsu skill. I think people, you know, no one's trying to be the best looking, the most, you know, whatever it is on the mats. I mean, that's not the point of us being there. Yeah. And that's another thing compared to my team sport experience, is I think this is my first sport where everyone's on their own individual journey. And that's one of my favorite things about it. And yet there's still, like, a team camaraderie between everyone, supporting each other, but there's no competition between anyone.
Yeah. Oh, my God, yes. I love that you're able to see and experience that, because that's just how we do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like that kind of insight only comes with years of experience and training. Like, you're seeing that now.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the first day of walking in, and the only other girl there gave me a huge hug, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this place? It was crazy. I was like, oh my gosh. And then everyone was helping me during warm-ups, and I was like, okay. And I was the only girl, or I was one of the only girls there, which was a new setting for me, and yet with everyone being so welcoming and didn't make me feel like I was, like, gender wasn't even in my head after that, after walking in and thinking, the preconceived notion of jiu-jitsu was it's going to be all men, and it was going to be a very masculine thing,
Mm-hmm.
and at least in my experience, and I'm sure yours, I haven't thought twice about it since joining,
Yeah.
Besides being with all my lovely women that I love so much, and obviously we have that bond.
Yeah. Have you been able to train with the men as well?
In terms of sparring?
Yeah, like sparring or just like technique training and stuff like that. Situational.
For sure.
And because you're still a white belt.
I am. Yes.
So can you speak to what that experience has been like?
Yeah.
As a female white belt, in this sport that is kind of stereotypically just men.
My experience, it's been so heartwarming when I go against a 250-pound guy and he somehow is able to, I feel like I'm going against someone my size. I'm like, oh my gosh. I don't know why it's like so sweet to me, and it makes me feel like everyone cares.
We do.
Yeah, which they do.
Yeah, we do.
It's a really cool feeling.
We do care.
Yeah.
And kind of circling back a little bit to something you had said a little earlier where you were nervous in the beginning because you're like, oh my God, if I spar or if I train with an upper belt, I'm just wasting their time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case. That's never the case. Nobody's time is ever wasted when we're on the mats together. And the thing with the upper belts, like the mentality is we obviously are at this point because we love this. We love this. This is for life. Jiu-jitsu for life. This is a life, how we live our lives, and we've gotten this far because it's so important to us. But then if it's so important to us, why wouldn't we want to share that with others?
Wow.
We want to nurture those who are coming after us to keep it alive and to keep the legacy going.
Yeah.
And,
wow.
And it wasn't that long ago that I was exactly where you are now. Can you imagine where I would be now if the people around me had made me feel like I was just a nobody or I was wasting their time or anything?
Yeah. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's because, that's another thing too, and I don't want to dominate this conversation, but, you being a white belt, I think, and also for other people who are white belts or thinking about becoming is that you are my training partner. I want you to grow because, I'm only as good as my training partners. So why wouldn't I want you to be good?
Yeah.
You know, because you're also helping me. If I'm going to train with you, obviously I want you to grow, but I also want to grow. And we're going to grow together.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. You are my training partner, Diana. You're our training partner.
I think that's a good reminder hearing the other perspective.
I think, and it's I feel like it's maybe not something that you can fully appreciate until after you've had some experience. And then you can be like, oh yeah, I kind of get it now.
Yeah.
A little bit,
Which I hope to one day.
Oh, you will. You will.
Yeah. Which I have a question. You mentioned that, like, it's a lifelong journey.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, because obviously I think there's a plethora of people in the beginner's class, and then in the advanced class you just kind of see the same faces. Why do you think most people, or that a lot of people can't stick with a sport the day that they start?
Oh, that's a loaded question. That's a really good question, too. So my first instinct is to say because it's not easy and because it takes time. I would probably have to reflect and dive deeper on this to give a more, like, philosophical answer, but that is kind of my initial reaction is that I think people don't stick with it in general. I mean, obviously people have different circumstances and whatever, but I think in general, I think they don't stick with it because it takes time. it takes time to gain experience. It takes time to refine your techniques. It takes time to put it all together. It's a different type of sport, and it's a sport and an art. It's a different type of art than a lot of other arts that, at least that I am familiar with. I'm not this is the only one I've trained, so I'm not super familiar with how the other ones are, but it's just different.
Yeah.
And it takes, I mean, there's a reason why it takes at least like 10 years to get a black belt in Jiu Jitsu versus like 3 years in other arts that I've heard of. And I'm not going to say what those are, okay? That's not the purpose here. We're not here to be trying to hate on anything or anybody or whatever. I'm just making a comparison.
Yeah.
It's just different. And I really have to wonder if some people maybe weren't 100% prepared for that, you know, if they thought like after a year or two that they would be, you know, quote unquote further along than probably what realistically they would be. And so maybe they quit because they're frustrated or disappointed, or also people quit because of certain life situations, which isn't really their fault. But I think for the people who choose to quit because they are dissatisfied with where they're at, I personally think it's because they have unrealistic expectations of their journey or their growth, or like the timeline it's going to take.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you being around the higher belts? Obviously more than I have, and been seeing who comes in and who stays. Is there a common trait that you see in the people that do stay? Is it just that they make time and they...
Yeah, it's persistence. Consistency. It's wanting to integrate it into your life and making it part of how you live your life instead of just a thing that you do.
Oh. Yeah. Wow.
Does that make sense to anybody else besides me? I don't know. But it's, in my mind, making it what you do versus a thing that I do, in my mind, is two totally different things. And I don't know if that's coming across very well. But it's like, if you make it part of like just what you do, it's like ingrained in your life. Versus if you think about it as like, oh yeah, I just do this thing. I mean, doesn't that kind of sound sort of just like throwaway?
I think I understand.
Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know if at the point of my journey that I'm at, I could fully embody the, like, this is what I do. Just, I think that's something that will take time. I don't know. Did that take time for you? Or were you think...
Well, I mean, for myself, like, when I started, I just fell in love with it immediately.
Yeah.
And so I really feel like for myself, it's a bit of a different case than for your average person.
Yeah.
Because I fell hard.
Oh.
And I was like, I love this. This is the best thing. It's my favorite.
Oh.
And so for me, it was a little bit different, I think. But since you asked the question, yeah, I think it's the attitude or mentality of, this is part of who I am. Mm-hmm. This is how I live my life. And I mean, obviously, like, and this is what we love to do, of course. Yeah. But it's more personally ingrained in us versus thinking of it as just like, oh yeah, like I do that jiu-jitsu stuff. Like I go a couple times a week, whatever, kind of a thing. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think it does. And in contrast to what you were saying, how you fell in love with it instantly, and I don't know if this, I mean, no, I think this is part of my journey is, and I was just laughing with someone about this earlier today too, is how I think I do jiu-jitsu more for the side effects than I do for how I feel when I'm there. Which maybe that's everyone, maybe that's just me.
I love that you said that. Can you please expand more on what you mean for our listeners?
Yeah. At least for me, I know most people love sparring, so this is definitely, like, I would much prefer to just watch the whole time or just to drill the whole time. And sparring is what really takes me out of my comfort zone because I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. However, after class, I feel amazing, and I reap the benefits outside of class, and I notice the benefits outside of class, but during class, I, most of the time, am questioning why I came. In the best way possible, because I continue to return, so it's not that I'm...
Yeah, To be honest with you, I think anybody who's ever worked out, ever, understands what you mean.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, it's a good exercise, just like anything else, like moving your body, you know. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I would say that's accurate. I've also experienced that too. Sometimes I'm in there doing it, I'm just like, ugh. But then it's over and I'm like, I feel so great.
It's like instant dopamine once you're
Oh
done.
my God, yeah. For sure. I mean, for me too.
Yeah, for everyone. For everyone.
I feel like I can accurately speak for all of us who train when I say for all of us. Yeah. Because otherwise, why do we keep coming back?
Yeah.
Sweating in each other's eyes and like pulling on each other's clothes and like flopping around on the ground. Like not flopping. Like that's just me hyperbole. But you know, it can be awkward schmuckward.
Yeah.
You know? That's another episode waiting to happen too. But
I cannot wait to get out. Or another thing is there's been so many times where I'm in my head all day, but I know that going to jiu-jitsu, I'll be like, oh, finally I can forget about what I've been thinking about all day.
Yes, preach.
Right?
Say that again louder for the people in the back.
I feel like it's I don't feel this because I've heard this a million times, but it is like a form of meditation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is very powerful.
Yeah.
And even as a white belt, I am able to experience that, which shows that you don't have to wait 4 years to experience the benefits.
Exactly. Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. Yes. I mean, hopefully, because this is going to be the first episode of season 2, so hopefully everybody listening to this would have listened to season 1. Hint, hint. Go listen to season 1, please. Season 1 getting started. But yeah, because I've had people that I know in my personal life tell me before that like, oh, you know, I see you doing it and I've thought about it, but, you know, and then they list something that they think they have to fix first before they can start. And I'm like, you don't got to do all of that. You can just start.
Yeah.
You know, jiu-jitsu literally is for everybody, no matter where you're at. And I think, you know, Denise and I were talking about this, and Coach Vince and I were talking about this, and you can come as you are. Come exactly as you are. And if you have physical limitations, make modifications.
And no one else will care, too.
Yeah, nobody else will care. I mean, we've all been somewhere. Like, people have had injuries and stuff. People have had illnesses. Like, people have had varying stages of fitness and health and stuff. People have had various stages of mobility. And yet we all come and we train together. Yeah, you don't have to be this, like, super experienced person or whatever to come and train with us. You just come as you are.
Like a lot of people don't even know what it is. Like, I didn't know what it was, and I joined, and it worked out for.
I'm so glad. Yeah. It sounds like you did a bit of a Google search beforehand. I had to do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on YouTube, see what it is.
Yeah. So remind me, because maybe you said this earlier, but during the course of the conversation, I think I already forgot.
Of course.
I'm sorry. What was sort of the impetus to wanting to start jiu-jitsu in the first place?
It was the whole thing of getting out of my comfort zone, and then I heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I remember now.
Yeah, but I do remember, like, sitting in the first class, too, because I'll think back on this, and it doesn't make sense to myself, I don't think I was initially drawn to, like, the rolling around. I don't know. Especially for who I am as a person. I don't think that was something that would have drawn me to come back, and they didn't talk about all the benefits, and I hadn't known what the benefits would be. But then even after that, I was walking around in public, and the rest of my day, like, was brighter. It's so cliche, but for some reason, maybe that was just, you know, the universe, whatever, higher source wanting me to know that was where I was supposed to be, because I did feel it made my mood so much better, and I wasn't even practicing. I wasn't around the people. I was sitting in the corner by myself, and I think the energy affected me.
I love that.
Like, oh my gosh,
Diana! I love that so much.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is meant to be.
Well, and it changes your mindset too. You know, like it is literally life-changing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes people, just in like the general public sphere, whenever we say this, you know, because like people who train, you never have to ask somebody if they train jiu-jitsu because they'll tell you.
I've never heard that one.
So like, people who train jiu-jitsu, like, we talk about this stuff all the time. And we talk about how it's life-changing, and I think people don't actually believe us, or they think that maybe we're, like, kooky or whatever. It's just like, what are you talking about? But it is something you have to experience. It is transformative. Like, you were saying, it lifted your mood, and like the energy in the room was really positive and uplifting and powerful and empowering, and being so welcoming, you know, and just being there the first day. Like, you've only been training for like a year?
Yeah, on and off, but a year.
Yeah, it's okay if it's on and off.
Yeah,
you know. But so the day you started it, like, that's your jiu-jitsu journey. Yeah. So you've been training for a year, a little give or take. And you've already experienced all the stuff that people who've been training for multiple years talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you train, sometimes the actual training itself is difficult, but then when you're done, the effects of that are numerous.
Yeah.
And positive and incredible. And, you know, like we were just saying before, like we had this whole conversation before, like, kind of the great equalizer, and you get to meet all these people in different parts of life that you probably never would have met before, and it literally is life-changing.
Yes. And I wish people, I don't know if you've experienced this, it might just be a lot of the college girls that I've met, but I'll tell people I do jiu-jitsu, and they're like, oh wow, that's so cool. And I think they almost, like, it's a different compartment in their brain, but I wish that they would hear that and be like, oh, maybe that's something I want to do. I don't think very many people think that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean also. And I think it might also go to your point from earlier where you said that not a whole lot of people know what it is.
That's true.
So I think if you just say that you train jiu-jitsu, because for the longest time, my family, we're not martial artists in general. I'm the only martial artist. So when I said that I started training jiu-jitsu, I think for their frame of reference, they knew that was a martial art, but they didn't really have a super good understanding of that. Minus my dad, though. My dad kind of messed around with martial arts when he was when he was younger. But people really only have the frame of reference for whatever they see in movies and stuff. And what do people see the most in movies? They see, like, karate, taekwondo, or, like, they watch, like, Bruce Lee movies, Jackie Chan, stuff like that, and that's what they think of. So anytime they think of martial arts, that's what they have as a frame of reference. But jiu-jitsu's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that. So it is different. So trying to explain how jiu-jitsu is different to people who don't really understand, it can be kind of hard to do, because, like you said, or they just think, like, in your mind, like your college friends, or the girls you are around, when you say, I train jiu-jitsu, and they're like, oh, okay, that's so cool. Maybe in their mind they're thinking that you're doing karate or something.
Yeah. Or they'll say, oh, so you can kick my butt. But that's not even one of the reasons I do. Like, the fighting portion, I think it's an added benefit, but it's not even one of my values of why I do it. So, but that's all they see. They just see the fighting.
Oh my God, and Denise and I were talking about that too. It's like, we all have our own reasons, and we all have our own, like, values for what we were looking for when we signed up.
Yes.
You know? Like, you wanted to get out of your comfort zone. I wanted to learn self-defense, and Denise wanted to try a martial art.
Yes.
Like, it was on her bucket list, you know? And it's like, and now we're all here.
Yeah. And we still all come together for the same...
Yeah.
And we all get our own added benefits.
Yeah, oh my God. Yes. Yeah. And speaking of, because people have said that to me too, when they're just like, oh, I bet you could kick my butt.
Yeah.
And so I just repeat to them what I said in Denise's conversation, what Professor Carlos had said in one of the first... one of my first months of training. He's like, jiu-jitsu is not the art of going around and kicking everybody's butts. It's the art of learning how to not get your own butt kicked.
Oh.
And so when people are, like, joking around, or when I mention that I train jiu-jitsu, and they're like, oh my God, you could kick my butt. I'm just like, well, and then I say that to them. It's like, no, it's really more about not getting my own butt kicked. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool. And I'm like, have you ever trained, and then I launched into my thing. It's like, have you ever trained jiu-jitsu before? Do you want to come train with me?
Yeah.
I train like Gracie about how Tony's Grove. Come on. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the thing, too, because, like, when something is so positive for you and it brings you so much joy, And it changes your life in whatever way it does, you know, from the small to the big and everything in between. You want to tell people about it.
Yeah.
And if it's something that you love so much, you want them to do it with you, because if you love it so much, then you know that they're going to love it so much too.
That's very true. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's also, like you said in the beginning of our conversation, like getting through the door is always the hardest part.
It is.
It's the most nerve-wracking part.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, so many people don't know what it is, so how would they know the added benefits?
Yeah.
I had no idea there was something that would give me these benefits.
Yeah.
Without hearing it on a podcast.
Yeah, or if they go to YouTube now, because and I think also sometimes people confuse jiu-jitsu with MMA, mixed martial arts, which, I mean, there is a jiu-jitsu aspect of it, but MMA is different, you know, and I think in general a lot of people don't actually realize that. MMA is not jiu-jitsu. Like, it has some jiu-jitsu in it, but that's not what jiu-jitsu is. So I think people, like, they'll see the what is it called? The UFC. Yeah. The UFC. They'll see the UFC and they'll think that that's jiu-jitsu. So then when they hear people do jiu-jitsu, they're like, oh my God, you could beat me up. I was like, well, because then I don't know what frame of reference that they are thinking of. Yes, like, do they think it's MMA? Do they think it's karate? Do they think it's, you know, this or that or the other? Like, yeah. And then, and I mean, and usually, like, the people that I meet, they're interested in learning what it is. Because I was like, well, we don't hit each other. And they're like, oh, you don't? I'm like, no, it's different.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, you know, then that usually opens the conversation.
And I like to tell people it's the gentle art, because I hadn't known that either until like a month in. And
that's what it means.
Gosh. Yeah.
It's that literally,
and I think that
gentle art.
That can help people to understand.
Yeah. And I love that it's gentle, but you can also be not gentle with it too, if you need to be. Mm-hmm. That's something that I kind of like about that.
Yeah. Oh, you talked about this. This was a bit, like, reminded me that this is something that I had gained from jiu-jitsu. Was, I think you talked with Denise about, like, using your body weight and how it's important.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it, honestly, was from training mornings with you when I first started, of like, put your weight on me. And I think not only did I get more comfortable and aware of how my body feels, but, like, realizing I could put my body weight on, I don't know why there was such a mental barrier for that. And there still is. So many times people have to remind me that, even, you know, but it somehow does translate into real life as a benefit.
Yeah.
I think just, what would you say, confidence and
oh my God,
yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's hard to articulate, but
yeah, no.
But there's something there.
I feel like anybody who's ever, first of all, I feel like any woman growing up as a woman just intrinsically knows exactly what you're talking about. And that is something that we have to kind of push through. That's a barrier we have to overcome. Because, like I was saying with Denise too, and I'm going to keep saying this because I still think it's true, is that we as women, growing up as women, are conditioned to want to always be smaller, lighter, you know, thinner, taller, whatever, take up less space. And so if you are not a certain aesthetic, whatever's in trend at the moment, if you don't fit that trendy aesthetic, then there's something wrong with you somehow. Or, you know, you need to fix yourself somehow or whatever. And so, at least in my lifetime, the trendy aesthetic is to always have been thin. I mean, right now I think, like, big booties are in, but it's also, like, small waists, which I don't have. I mean, I've got the booty and stuff, but I don't have the small waist. So, but yeah, we're conditioned to be smaller, thinner, lighter, you know, delicate, this and that or the other. And I think there's, like, a subsection of female athletes who feel that in order to be a successful athlete, they need to gain more muscle, they need to, you know, do these various things to kind of, like, keep up with the men.
Yes.
And, I mean, if that's what you want to do, then do it, you know? Like, but do it because you want to, not because you think you have to.
Yeah.
And that's that's a big difference too.
Yes.
But it's I mean, for like the rest of us, like your average schmuck, you know, I'm including myself in that too. Like your average schmuck who just like comes in and tries to train, like we're not like those athletes, you know? So it's like we have this mentality of like you have to be smaller, thinner, lighter, and now we're here training jiu-jitsu, trying to spar or with all of these different people, and it's like, oh my god, why do I keep getting like reversed when I'm in top mount? How come I can't hold this person down?
It's almost like the opposite. Like you thought you were being too heavy, and you're like, I'm not heavy.
You gotta be heavier.
And then you realize like, oh,
put that pressure on.
Yeah. And the whole aesthetics thing, even though for my first competition, it had no meaning, but for myself, I really wanted to do well. And it was the first time I had been training at the gym and training in general for not aesthetic purposes. And it was such a refreshing feeling of walking in there and not saying, oh, I want to look a certain way. I want to be able to, you know, perform a certain way. And it was such a shift in my brain, and it felt so good. I'd never been in the gym with that, and it was really cool. Yes. And I think that could be for any sport, but...
Yeah, God, I love that. And remember, my God, Diana, you're so insightful. And I remember, listeners, she's a white belt with 1 stripe. She's been training for a year, off and on, she says. And you're so insightful. But, like, this is also the benefits of training jiu-jitsu. Yeah. You don't have to be a brown or black belt to be able to reap the benefits.
No.
Exactly as you've already said.
And listening to higher belt conversations, like, if there's, like, a black belt podcast or something, and I can listen and still understand all the benefits that they're talking about, even if I don't have them at the fullest extent.
Yeah.
But there's no, like, brick wall between belts and what they gain from jiu. It's not like once I become a blue belt, I'll gain something new. I think you're constantly gaining something. Right? I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I can't.
So everybody in podcast land can't see my face right now, but I'm so blown away by what you just said. I love what you just said. There's no brick wall between belts. I love that so much. Diana, how are you so insightful? I love this. This is the best. There is no
even us being able to sit down with each other. And I mean, for podcast listeners, I would say we've trained on the mats just a handful of times, right?
Yeah, because like you're always in school, and I'm always working in the evenings.
It's not like for the past year I've been training with her every day.
Yeah, although that would be great.
It would be awesome.
That would be great. I wish, but that's not how life is right now.
Yeah, not at all. And jiu-jitsu, this shows how fast it can bring someone together, and we're different belts. Completely different belts, completely at different stages of our jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah. So, in podcast land preview, I'm going to do an episode about everybody has something to offer, from white belt all the way out to black. You can learn something from everyone. So, if you're sitting here thinking like, oh, well, you know, I don't really know that much. Like, it doesn't matter. You matter. You are valuable. You bring value to the mats and to everyone that you train with. And that's enough. And you don't have to do anything else besides just keep showing up.
And even, especially in my experience, like, thinking of friends that were white belts with me and now aren't, there has been no difference in our relationship when they changed belts. Which is... like, for example, volleyball, again, going back to sports, if it was, like, the 1s, 2s, and 3s team, there was a complete, like, they weren't even, if you were on a different team, you weren't even talking to each other just because you were, quote-unquote, better.
Really? Yeah. Oh, no.
Like, it's, you know, that shows that it's so different, the environment and community of jiu-jitsu is, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So, let me ask you this, so we can kind of bring everything full circle. What would you say to somebody who's maybe considering starting, or has recently started, but they are maybe thinking that, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to work on this or that or the other before I come back.
Okay.
Or maybe I need to lose weight before I start. Or maybe I need, maybe.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody?
I guess I'll share for what I tell myself when I'm feeling those things is even if I don't see a benefit in going or staying, I just tell myself at the end of the day, like, I don't want to do this, and then if I do, I know that that's making me grow as a person. Even if I'm not getting better, I'm not gaining all the things I want to gain from jiu-jitsu, is if you're getting out of your comfort zone and doing that thing that you don't want to do, it's going to make you a better human.
Well said. I
yeah,
agree.
That's what I tell myself, at least. So.
I agree. Yeah. Usually the things that we don't want to do are the things that are, like, the best for us. It's like, it's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would say go. Just go.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, keep coming. Like, yeah. I mean, not every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows and butterflies, but the feeling that you get, the consistent mindset shifts, like all of the benefits that you've literally just talked about with me.
Which you get so soon by PS.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Say that louder for podcast.
By the way,
land.
yeah, you don't have to. You can get that. I noticed those things very soon.
Like we've literally been saying, Diana is a white belt with one stripe. Yeah. She's been training for like a year, but listen to how insightful she is. Listen to how much she's gained and learned and everything. And like, you don't have to wait to get the benefits of jiu-jitsu. Like, you really don't have to wait. So don't wait.
Yeah, don't wait. There you have it.
So don't wait. Yeah, so as like a final thing, where can people find you on social media?
They could find.
Do you have social media?
If at this time that they're listening, I might be on Instagram. The account is out there. Diana Kubilius. Just spell that out.
Yeah.
DianaKubilius. It's my Instagram.
So I'm gonna link that in the show notes if I can find your Instagram handle.
Yeah.
I'll link your Instagram.
Sounds
and then
good.
I'll also spell your name in the title as well.
Perfect.
So people can, if they want to. Because, another part of asking that question is to help grow our community of Jujiteiras.
Yeah. Which I would love to see more females.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think there's also no stereotypical female for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Which I've learned because we're all so unique, but we there's no one type of female that does jiu-jitsu. Because I would have probably thought it would be like this, like, badass, like, this girl that wants to fight, but I don't think it's that at all.
Yeah.
Which is important for girls to know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and the girls who are badass and want to fight, they still come and train too.
Oh, yeah.
But, because we have a few of them too.
We do.
But you don't have to be like that to come and
Yeah.
train. Yeah. I think that's kind of the point. It's like, you don't have to be one way or the other. You can just come and be exactly as you are.
Yes.
Awesome. I really hope that you all enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. And I hope that hearing the perspectives of other women will help to inspire you to also try jiu-jitsu as well. You can do jiu-jitsu exactly as you are now. And we would love to have you. If you're interested in some bonus content, I do have a Patreon, Jujiteiras Podcast, where you get early ad-free access to all of the episodes. And I also have some bonus content on there for patrons who are purple belt and up. And that is the Patreon exclusive raw and unedited series where you will hear the interviews well in advance of when they come out live to the public. And also you'll hear some interviews that probably won't be making it to the public. And you get to hear the whole entire thing from start to finish. Every single and the ones that I don't edit out, every single pause, and all the background noises and everything. But you also hear the conversation in its entirety with no edits. So you'll get to follow along with the conversation as it was happening and really get to hear people's raw reactions and just from their own mouths, their experiences. So if that's something you're interested in, that is the current monthly exclusive content that I have. I also put polls up there, and I'll do like Q&As sometimes. I'll put random posts up there sometimes that have to do with the podcast. if you want non-podcasty things, that's what Instagram is for. Unless you tell me that you want non-podcasty things. If you are a patron on Patreon, then I can put non-podcasty things up there too. So I would love to connect with you. If you have something you want to say, let me know. If you have questions about what you've heard or suggestions of things that you want to talk about, or if you have anything else that you need to say, just let me know. I just cannot wait for this series, you guys. I am very excited. You are going to love it just as much as I love it. So buckle up. It's going to be a ride. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to connect with me while you wait for the next podcast episode, find me on Instagram at Jujiteiras Podcast and at Jujiteira. I'm also on Facebook at Jujiteiras Podcast. You could also email me at jujiteiraspodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to support me in this podcast, you can visit me on Patreon at Jujiteiras Podcast, where you get early ad-free access to all episodes, plus some bonus content. You could also find me on buymeacoffee.com at Jujiteiras Pod. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to rate and review. See you next time.